Welcome to part 5 of the shitty series that I am currently making of What If Deku Was in Hazbin Hotel, part 5. Y'all would have another series of this? Well then, you're gonna have to wait and figure out what comes up next. Hope you'll enjoy. 3 months living in hell, being taken care of and loved, not having to hold back her intelligence, and Izuku still wasn't used to it. Night Raven Institute was so different. It was a much longer commute from her new home than her old school was to her old apartment, taking a carriage and riding alongside Milo, Mina, and Artemis. Mrs. Mayberry was strict, but that was because she ran a class full of demon children, but it was so much better. Like one time Blaze tried to stab Izuku's tail with some scissors they were working with, and she just grabbed his wrist and gave him a look which made them all shiver. She also explained math way better and actually didn't tell her to stop her muttering, she actually listened to them. Izuku learned that Mrs. Mayberry was from when quirks hadn't even started yet, that the only supernatural things were demons and angels. She taught about how people used to do things without quirks, and Izuku was fascinated with it. None of her old school teachers wanted to talk about pre-quirk. It's stupid, really, Mrs. Mayberry chuckled when Izuku brought it up. The fact that they are so obsessed with quirk. It is a mere speck in their lives. When they die, it won't matter what their quirk is, she grins darkly. Especially since those bastards are probably those who hurt you are going down here. Hell will eat them alive, Izuku chuckles a bit. Besides Mrs. Mayberry, there was Colonel Francisco Ramirez, who, like Mrs. Mayberry, was a sinner demon. He was a large black cat with his ears pierced and 4 glowing yellow eyes that glared at them. He wore camouflage fatigues that were ripped in places and heavy black boots that were stained with blood and looked formidable. His paws were in fact fully artificial metal hand, which Izuku knew would be a bad idea to shake if she wanted to avoid an unscheduled trip to the infirmary. Izuku knew that he was the last person you wanted to mess with, as he would happy to rip your head off, which he did to his whole squadron, trying to protect himself and his boyfriend when it was learned that they had quirks, as he was alive during the time when quirks had begun to appear. Right now the 4-year prides were standing in front of him as he bellows at them. Right, listen up, maggots. Today is when real hell begins. He grins evilly as he walks. For the last few years or months, he eyes Izuku, who stood at attention, feet together and eyes forward. I've been going easy, getting you used to the basics. But now I will be familiarizing you with equipment, starting with the most basic and fundamental one that you will use during your time here at Night Raven. He walked over to a rack of strange black objects and picked one up. It looked like an armored gauntlet with a small handle at one end. A silver arrowhead protruded from a bulky assembly attached to one side. This is a Mark IV tactical grappler unit, the colonel barked, slipping the device onto his arm. You will all become familiar with every aspect of its operation and tactical use. It is NPT, a complicated device, so even you Dahila can be able to understand it. The bull demoness growls in anger, but doesn't say anything. The primary trigger is located on the handle here. He pointed to the hand grip. This will fire the grappling line like so. He pointed the device straight up at the ceiling of the cavern they were in and pressed the button. With a popping sound, a steel bolt, trailing a thin wire, shot from the barrel of the device and straight into the rock above. The secondary switch is located under your thumb and is used to reel the line in and out. There was a slight whining noise from the device, and the colonel was pulled several feet into the air, hanging suspended before them. After dangling there for a second, he pushed the switch in the opposite direction and lowered himself onto the platform again. Pull the trigger for a second time to release the grappler. As he pressed the button, the bolt released from the ceiling above. With another high-pitched whine, the line reeled back into the unit at lightning speed, the pointed bolt snapping back into place. Individually, these devices can be used to scale vertical surfaces,
or to descend safely from the elevated positions, but a pair of grapplers can and will be more useful. He walked back over to the rack and took a second grappler, snapping it onto his other arm. He stepped to the edge of the platform and fired a line toward the strange obstacles suspended from the roof. The bolt struck a concrete block and attached itself firmly. Watch closely. You will all be expected to try this shortly. Izuku watched as the colonel stepped off the platform and swung towards the center of the cavern. As he reached the apex of his swing, he released the line and started to drop, drawing gasps from a couple of the watching students. As he fell, he fired the second grappler, the bolt fixing firmly to a distant block. No longer falling but swinging now at great speed towards the other side of the cavern. He continued to swing from arm to arm, seeming to miss some of the obstacles by just a few centimeters, but always maintaining a constant speed. He moved with grace and agility, and had soon cleared the field of obstacles. When he approached the far side of the cavern, he turned around and swung back again switching from line to line just in time to avoid seemingly inevitable collisions. Finally, he landed softly on the platform in front of the assembled students. He didn't even appear to be out of breath. As you will have noticed, when used in this way, a pair of grapplers can be used to transport you at high speed through an elevated environment. It will take considerable practice for you to achieve a basic level of competence with this equipment, and with that in mind, I want each of you to take a pair of grappler units and attempt to traverse the cavern to the platform on the opposite wall. The colonel waves across the cavern, indication an identical platform that was partially obscured by the intervening obstacles. The students all looked suitably apprehensive at having to make the crossing, warily eyeing the drop to the dark water below. Blaze raised his hand nervously and jumps when the colonel looks at him and hisses, "This is rather dangerous," the rock-like demon said, and Izuku had to raise an eyebrow at this before she noticed him glancing fearfully at the water below. Must not be able to swim with him being made of rocks. The colonel stalked over to where Blaze was standing and bent down towards him. "Do I look like someone who would place you in a dangerous situation?" Blaze gulps, eyes widen as he knew that this was a question for which there was no correct answer. Yes, Blaze decided to choose the answer that seemed least likely to bring about his imminent demise. "Good, because that's exactly what I am, and you just volunteered to go first, maggot," Colonel said with an evil grin before he grabs the horrified-looking Blaze towards the rack of grapplers. The colonel quickly chose a pair for Blaze and put them on, pointing out to the others how they should be fastened properly. "Right, let's see what you've got," the colonel said, gesturing for Blaze to take up a position at the edge of the platform. Blaze stood there, looking down over the edge with an expression of terror. Izuku tilts her head, and she could hear him begging that the water isn't so deep as he slowly raised his arm to point the grappler at a point on the ceiling some distance away. He pressed one of the buttons and the bolt shot through the air, fixing to the ceiling with a thunk. He looked down again and then over his shoulder at the colonel. "I think I can't do this," he said nervously, the rocks on his face rippling about. "Only one way to find out, maggot," the colonel replied before shoving Blaze hard in the back, sending him falling forward off the platform. Izuku watches as Blaze screams as he swung out from the platform, spinning and twisting, looking for all the wood like a fish hooked on the end of a line. While the colonel's demonstration had been a display of grace and agility, Blaze's first attempt was more like a drunken wrecking ball. In his panic, Blaze had not even tried to fire off a second line, and after a few seconds he was left dangling at the end of the vertical wire, spinning gently, his eyes firmly shut. Dahlia sighs in annoyance, closing her own eyes, as the colonel did not look happy. "Fire the second line, you useless sack of shit," he yells at the stranded Blaze, "or you'll be hanging there all day." Blaze raised his free arm obediently, one eye still closed, and he fired the second grappler randomly. Izuku grimaces as she watches. The stone demon slowly proceeds over to the other platform, the colonel having to instruct him to release and fire his lines. With his final swing, Blaze has released the line prematurely and fell several feet onto the metal platform, landing in an undignified heap. Right, who's next? The colonel said in an angry hiss before his eyes landed on Izuku. You'll do. He nods his head at her. Let's see if you can do any better than our first volunteer. Izuku nods her head and calmly walked over to the rack, fastening a grappler onto each arm before approaching the edge of the platform. When she reaches the drop-off, she smiles before she jumps off. She could hear her classmates give a collective gasp as she pressed the button and a line shot up from the device. Totally relaxed and at ease, Izuku easily swung through the course, releasing one line before firing the other, using the speed gained in each short drop to make each successive swing faster and faster. She shot amongst the obstacles between the two platforms, seeming to miss collisions by just a millimeter on several occasions, finally landing on the other side as lightly as a feather. Izuku shakes her head, a large smile on her beak as her feathers were ruffled. She waits with Blaze as the others begin taking their turns, wincing when Milo unfortunately swung face first into one of the concrete blocks in the center of the caver. The crunching impact drew a sympathetic ooh from the watching crowd, but he smiled, laughing as he stood beside Izuku, dripping wet on the platform, spotting what promised to be an impressive bruise on his cheekbone. The colonel stood before them, a mild look of disgust on thick face. With very few exceptions, you have performed predictably today. Hardly surprising, he then eyes narrow. But by the time I finished, I expect each of you prides to make the crossing in the blink of an eye and bone dry. Do I make myself clear? Sir, yes, sir, the students replied in unison. The colonel gave them an evil grin. I hope so for your sake, because next time there might be something hungry waiting in the water. Class dismiss. I can't believe you did so well, boss, Milo said as they walked towards the gates, PE being their last lesson for the day. Izuku shrugs, feathers ruffling. Pop's been teaching me how to do sort of stuff. You know, twirling and spinning in the air, she then grins. It makes Papa worry so much that he specifically made a room of it with the bottom filled with pillows and so many spells so I don't hurt myself. I'm not surprised he would worry about you, Dahlia sneers. I heard that demons who used to be humans are so fragile. She and Blaze laughs as they run down the pathway and Izuku sighs. One thing that hasn't changed were bullies and Dahlia and Blaze were hers. Dahlia came from an important family from the China location in Hell and was said to be a relative of the demon Bull King from the Journey to the West story. She always gave a fit when Izuku beat her in tests, pointing out that a human-born demon shouldn't be able to beat her without cheating. Mrs. Mayberry kept having to tell her off and scold her. Blaze was her best friend and was the many times great-grandson of Azazel, who was a general of Lucifer's army during his rebellion. Izuku learned that if Blaze was a closer descendant of Azazel, then Dahlia wouldn't be able to boss him around. Izuku sighs as she walks over to her papa, who smiles and picks her up, nodding his head towards Asmodeus, who was picking up Hitoshi. Izuku waves goodbye to him, Artemis and Mina both, who were stepping into a limo, while her and Milo get into the carriage that Papa brought. Why is it hard? Papa looked down at her with confusion. I mean, she kicked out her feet. Why do people think they can rule over other? We're all the same. Who cares about what quirk or what your status is? Ego, really, my little Nova. Papa look at her sadly. People, especially demons down here, love to lord over the power they have over others. It's stupid, Izuku mutters, and Milo nods his head. Boss isn't like that. He smiles at her, and Izuku shyly smiles back. Oh yes, I very much know, Papa said proudly. But remember, Izuku, it is good to be kind, but don't let that kindness allow people to run you over and use you. Izuku looks up at him. When people give you shit, you give them shit right back. Izuku nods her head, and they all talk about their day, the carriage stopping in front of the mansion, Uncle Moxie and Aunt Millie already there to pick up Milo. Waving goodbye to her friend Izuku sighs as she is led inside, the butler holding a green dress. Tonight her family was going to the Has-Been Hotel where Princess Charlie, the daughter of Lucifer, was running a gala. It was going to be Izuku introduction to the royal ranks of hell as a princess of the Gosha family. Pringles and Papa helped her get ready, taking a bath and using special shampoo for her feathers. Pops came back from the office as they were putting on the dress. Izuku's eyes were wide as she wore the sparkly green dress, it shimmering with jewels at the button as Papa brushes her feathers before tying a green bow in it. Awa, and who's this fucking adorable girl is? Pop smiles, wrapping his arms around her and nuzzles her. Izuku screeches in glee, a purr erupting from her throat as Stolas laughs. Now Blitzy, don't mess up her dress. Papa scolds a bit, but there was a smile on his face. Now we need to get ready as well. Pops groans at this, but sets Izuku down. A couple of hours later, they were getting out of a carriage in front of a large building. It was a tall amalgamation of arched windows and turrets. One seems to be broken. It appears to be 7 stories tall with the remnants of an airship, an ocean liner, a sailing ship, and a carousel litter on both sides, and appeared to have been incorporated into the structure of the building itself. Izuku looked at the train with some tracks looping the first and second floor. A large sign with the logo shines down on them as they walk towards the entrance with the tinted cover. Whoa, Izuku whispers before her eyes widen as a large cat with large red wings with a dark top on the underside opens the door. Welcome to the gala, he lazily says, looking very uninterested at the thought of doing this. Izuku follow Papa and pops into the hotel. Her eyes widen as they followed the signs into a large room, filled with so many demons. She grips her Papa's and Pop's hand tighter as some turn to stare at them, and looks up when she see Papa freeze a bit. Stolas, Pop said when both her and him notice him staring at 2 bird-like demons, both with yellow eyes, the male with long white feathers that went to his back, while the female wearing a light pink dress with black feathers and white stripes. They never forgave me for killing Stella, Papa whispers. I just know they are going to make a scene. They vow to keep tormenting me since that was what Stella loved to do. Izuku blinks and looks at Papa with worry, but he smiles down at her. But that smile then turns into a frown as another demon walks towards them, her Papa glaring at the larger owl demon. So this is my new granddaughter. Izuku blinks, staring at him, noticing some resemblance between him and Papa, even though he looked more like a horned owl than a barn owl. His red eyes looked down at her with curiosity, his crimson cloak wrapped tightly around him. Father, Papa growls, I'm surprised to see you here. I thought a place like this would be too plebeian for you. Oh, are you still bitch crying, even after all these years? He shakes his head, and while yes, I wouldn't usually be caught dead here, he eyes a small one-eyed demon with short pink hair trying to dust everything. But this establishment is run by Lady Charlotte and is encouraged by our Lord Lucifer since it is helping with our overpopulation, so I have to show support over it. He bends down. Now are you going to introduce me to my granddaughter? Why so interested now? You never showed any to Octavia, Papa hisses in anger. That's because she was only a precautionary heir, Grandfather rolls his eyes. This young lady is much more valuable, especially since she has Lord Lucifer's approval. Izuku takes a step back, eyes narrow at him. I wonder what sort of powers she will have, and what she will do for the Gosha family. Well, that will be up to me as her father, Papa hisses, as I won the court case all those years ago for the abuse you put me through by forcing me to marry Stella. I now only listen to the ruling of King Lucifer. He looks down at Izuku before gently pushing her. Why don't you go and play, my dear? I don't doubt Lady Charlotte made some games for the young ones to play with. Izuku nods her head and leaves, trying to ignore the red-eye stares and the furious hissing from her papa, while Pops gently holds his hand. Smiling, she runs over to Mina and Artemis, both dress up as well as Hermina in a dress that was a mixture of red and pink, Artemis in a dark blue tux. The three happily talk to each other as Izuku orders some food, eyes lighting up when she saw that jambalaya was on it. Her tail begins to wag happily. She hadn't had it since her mother's death, the dish being a family recipe. She thanks the waiter who brings it, while she was mumbling about the guest and theorizing what they can do, but stops as she begins to happily eat, only to freeze at the first bite. "What's wrong?" Mina asked when she saw tears pricking in the corner of Izuku's eyes. Izuku quickly wipes the tears away. "And nothing it just tastes like my mom's jambalaya." Oh, Izuku blinks when Artemis and Mina freeze as all three turn to slim demons with beige-colored skin and broad affixed smiles full of sharp yellow fangs. His hair was really fluffy, a pinkish red cropped with an angled bob cut with black tips at the ends and two large tufts of hair extending from the top of his head, looking like the ears of a deer. His red eyes looked down at her, and he held out his arm, glad to see that someone has good taste. Alasta's the name. Izuku watches him wearily before shaking his hand, both Mina and Artemis gasping, and glad to see a child your age knows how to use their manners. Izuku smiles shyly. "Thank you." She tilts her head. "You're the radio demon, right? I like your analyst show, it's really good." A red glow surrounded him, and he tilted his head as well. "Oh, have I met a fan? Now that is very much splendid." "I like heroes," Izuku shrugs. "Used to go hero hunting, so I can watch the fights." She jumps a bit when he snaps his fingers. "Now I remember where I seen that green messy bush before." He laughs loudly, making Artemis' ears pin to his head. "You're that little girl who seems to be at every hero fight in Musatafu writing down in a notebook." Izuku rubs the back of her neck, not noticing the wide-eye stares from Mina or Artemis. "Yeah, I love watching them. It also gave me an excuse to get away from Hisashi, but I was upset that I wouldn't be able to do any more since there's no hero or villains down here. But Pops, show me your radio show," and Vox's Alaster growls a bit. "And it was great because you guys don't just do Japan heroes, but heroes all around the world. But yours is way better." Like Vox said that Captain Celebrity's quirk must have a secondary quirk that allows him to lift stuff like the Tokyo Sky Egg a few months ago. But the truth is that his quirk covers himself and whatever he is in contact with a force field that makes them levitate. It's also why some people think the force field can protect him from heat, cold, or physical harm. In fact, he's just levitating it all away from him. Alastair's eyes widen a bit in interest hearing her speak, and he grabs a chair and pulls it away before sitting down. Izuku continues, not noticing at all. When someone called your show and asked you about Best Genus sidekick Kamui Woods and asked him about his mutant quirk, you lit into the caller saying it wasn't a mutant quirk, but a transformation quirk that allows him to generate and control wood, and not just from his arms like most people think. You even theorize that he might be able to make fruit if he trains to make different wood. Alastair laughs. "My aren't you are a very interesting princess. And quite smart too," Izuku smiles. But then she turns her head to see her papa quietly arguing with the two bird demons they saw glaring at them when they came in, his eyes filled with pain and anger. "If you excuse me," Izuku nods her head at Alastair before she leaves her friends and the very interesting talk she was in. Her eyes were on the two, a frown on her beak as the two laugh at her papa. It's hilarious you think we would ever stop, the female said with a shrill laugh. Especially since you just showed how pathetic you really are again. You adopted a human child, she glares. It doesn't matter who she is. She a lowly human that you tainted the Gosha even more with. Izuku growls at this, blue flames flickering off her tail as it lashes. She felt her heart beat harder as the male shakes his head. Seriously, Stolas, aren't you tired of this? If you were actually gay, you should have said something before your marriage to Stella, but no, you decided to cheat on her with an imp of all things and tried to give excuses that she was abusive to you, hired someone to kill you. Now all she is remembered is as the villain of your sad sob story of your infidelity. Papa growls. For one, she was abusive. She obviously loved tormenting me. She loved tormenting every living thing as much as she loved throwing parties. Two, she did hire someone, Stryker in fact, to kill me. He takes a deep breath. And I was always gay. Everyone who isn't my father could see it, but I was forced to marry Stella. The only thing I don't regret in that marriage is that it gave me Octavia. He stood proudly. Now, if you will excuse me. And speaking of Octavia, the female screeches loudly, making lots of the guests turn towards them. None of them noticed the flames started to appear on the tips of Izuku's horns. You made her hate her mother. You took the poor girl's mother away, killed her because she almost put down your imp toy like the rat he was. We all know you sometimes can't tell reality from fantasy, and you made yourself delusional that it cost that poor girl her mother. The woman throws her hands up in the air. You know, I heard that Octavia is dating the son of Duke MHA. But thanks to you, Stella can't be here to show Octavia on how to be a proper lady to hopefully her future husband. I'm delusional? Are you hearing yourself? Papa snaps, all four eyes glowing with rage. Stella cared nothing for Octavia. It was me who raised her. It was me who loved her. It was me spending 17 years trying to get along with that stone-hearted bitch so Octavia could have a normal life and be happy. And if Octavia is dating Amjuja's boy, then I'm happy for her, and she doesn't need anyone teaching her anything but her professors at college. He then snorts, looking over to see Pops pushing through the crowd. Now really, I'm tired of your nonsense words. I will like to hang with my family at this party. Don't you dare ignore me for that lousy fucking imp. The woman goes to throw up her hand to slap him when something wraps around her wrist. She looks down to see Izuku, her eyes shadowed by her hair. Oh, it's you, disgrace to the Gosha family. Let go of me, you little wretch. You have no right to even be graced with my presence. A chuckle erupted from Izuku's throat, her shadow wiggling underneath the chandelier light. You know it's funny. You talk about Papa's infidelity when you're doing the same with your husband. The woman gasps, her eyes going to the male who stares at her with confusion. Oh, even with imps as well, Izuku chuckles. The only reason you have been able to hide it is because you kill them so they don't spill your dirty little secret. Let go of me, you filthy little. A scream erupts from her throat, the woman falling onto her knees in pain as Izuku's eyes ignited in blue flames. All the demons scream, some even turning to run out the doors when they shut close. They turn to see their king standing beside his daughter and Lord Payman. The demons whimper, their gazes turning back to Izuku as her shadow spread against the wall, two wings looking like an angel's opening from the shadow. Guilty, Izuku whispers, the pupils of her eyes, a bright blue and slighted. The blue flames blaze on her body, the tip of her horns, her shoulders, and the tip of her tail, and she smiles. Now why don't you look into my eyes? Your soul is by the blood of those you killed. Feel their pain. The woman screams as she stares, her body erupting into blue flames, black blood leaking from her eyes and mouth as her body burns. Izuku lets go, watching as the body burns from the hatred of those this demon had killed. She smiles as once the flames burn out, there is nothing left, and she turns to the woman's husband and grins. He screams and yells, leaping out of the window. Giggling, she goes to her papa and grabs his hand, the blue flames dying out, and she yawns, pouting, "Great, I'm tired now, and I was enjoying a good jambalaya." Pops runs over and picks her up, praising her, while also looking at Stola's worrying as he tells Pops that he was all right. Izuku places her head on his shoulder, even as she hears Alastair clap wildly, saying, "Good show, good show." Izuku didn't care about that, as she soon falls asleep. Everyone now knew to not mess with her family. A full moon shines down on the city of Kamino. A man was panting, sweat dripping down his face as he looks around. "He's here," he whispers in fear as he stands up from his desk. The two men he had hired to guard him look around, their eyes shining in wariness. "Where is he, sir?" one asked, stomping his foot on the ground, leaning his body slightly to aim his horns at whoever his boss pointed him to. The man in question wobbles on his feet, looking around with fear. He looks down when a shadow goes over him, and he swirls on his feet, pointing at the skylight. There. But when the two hired thugs looked up, the shadow figure was gone. "But I saw him, I swear." He shivers as a wind blows on him, forming goosebumps over his body. His eyes widened, hearing the sound of the curtain flapping. When did the why? The flash of pearly white fangs was his only warning before the ram thug roars, charging into the shadows. A screech was heard, the fangs biting into his horns. The other thug screams, electricity dancing off his arms, but a tail wraps around his neck. The man watches nervously, more sweat dripping down as his hired thugs was thrown out of the shadows. Taking a step back, he watches in horror as the figure emerges. A large humanoid bat slowly stalks out of the shadows, his large orange eyes narrowed at the boss, wearing a Kevlar sleeveless jumpsuit with dark blue stripes down the sides. Muscled arms covered in metal gauntlets with angular fin blades, being revealed as he spreads his wings wide, a long tail sweeping side to side. Another case, another night. Soro thought as he watches the police cars dive into the alley where the three crooks were waiting tied up. At least it wasn't a demon. That would mean more paperwork. Yawning, he goes to spread his wings to take flight when the sound stops, the very air being still. Looking down again, he sees that the lights of the police cars were still, the men and women frozen. Groaning, he looks over his shoulder. "Mephisto, what do you want?" "Well, that's quite rude, my friend." The elegant outfit-wearing man with dark purple hair smiles, his green eyes in amusement. "Though I understand the snappiness, when was the last time you slept?" His smile was bright, but it slowly turned into a frown when Soro just looks at him. "You're no fun. I have no idea what Alastair thinks of you as entertainment when he sneaks up here anyway. I'm here to remind you about tomorrow. You know how important this is, Shiro." "I know," Shiro growls, standing up. "I know how important this is, especially from the rumors I've been hearing underground." He gives the other a steady glare. "Don't worry, Izuku Gosha is being sent to Aldera. In fact, All Might will be around the area during her first day." "Splendid, splendid." Mephisto claps his hands. "I knew I wouldn't have to worry." He tilts his head, seeing the guilt in the hero's eyes. Don't tell me that you don't like this." "Of course I don't," Shiro growls, his long tail lashing in anger. "I have known All Might since we were children. We were childhood friends, so I know the truth about his quirk. I don't like the fact that I'm being forced to trick him into giving up his quirk. It doesn't feel like he is choosing his successor." Mephisto sighs. "Humans. Even to this day, I don't understand you." But he then smiles. "But if I know her, I don't think Izuku will keep it hidden from All Might." He shakes his head. "She is a wild card, having been trained by Alastair." "Ah," a pink-haired demon cut short and in a shaggy style. Blood spits out of his mouth. His long black claws grip the chain-link fence angrily. He pushes a hand away from another demon who tried to help him up. "You fucking bitch. I'm going to kill you." "Aha." And you don't know how many fucking times I heard that before, Izuku scoffs, crossing her arms. The young girl was no longer 8 years old, but was now 14. She was lanky with curly black feathers tinged with green, the back tied up in a ponytail, wearing a dark green hoodie with a red skirt, black biker shorts underneath. Her hooves click on the ground in annoyance. Dude, one person holds him back, looking at the demoness with eyes filled with fear. Isn't she the princess being trained by that freaky radio dog guy? Are you sure you want to be messing with her? I thought he was a deer, another demon said, but the pink-haired demon scoffs. Who gives a shit? I'm going to mess with this bitch up so much, he then leers. Oh wait, I don't have to, someone already did, didn't she? Izuku stills, feathers curling as her yellow and green eyes glare with hatred at the other. Oh, did I hit a nerve? Everyone knows how that Von Eldritch bitch had her as her little play. He screams as a blob of acid hits him in the face. Hey dorks, you're messing with my pal. The demon wipes the acid off his face and sneers at the girl who walked over to Izuku. She had light pink skin with dark pink spots acting as freckles dancing around on her skin. Her eyes narrow at the male demon, the X-shaped iris glowing in her left eye. Her dark pink hair bounced at each step she took, wearing her purple crop top and dark brown jeans. Are you looking for a fight? It looks like you idiots are. Why don't you three idiots get off my turf before I smash you idiots into the pavement? Oh, you want to go, bitch? The pink-haired demon huffs, black claws lighting up. I'll be happy to oblige, he roars out as he charges. Izuku sighs, rubbing her head. Izuku Gosha, Mina Ishido. Wincing in unison, both girls turn their head to see none other than Charlie, standing outside her limo, arms crossing over her red suit jacket. Oh shit, we're in trouble, Mina whispers and Izuku sighs, snapping her fingers and making the shadow disappear, dropping the demon straight to the ground. Come on, Izuku mutters, beginning to walk over to the limo. Let's get this over with. Mina nods her head, blowing a raspberry at the trio of demons who glare at them before following Izuku, crawling into the limo. I can't believe you two girls, Charlie scolds the two as the limo began to drive down the road. Today is the day of your demon evaluation, where you two have to prove to the exorcist side of the Japan's commission that you can be trusted around humans, and you two decided to start a turf fight. I didn't start shit, Izuku growls, slumping in the seat. I was walking towards the hotel and saw the damn bastards messing with some poor birds. I know this is hell and all, but fucking up with the animals just for some cruel laughs. She looks away, not wanting to see Charlie's soft smile. She gives an angry hoot when Mina pokes her cheek. That's our boss, always wanting to help people. She turns to Charlie. Reminds you of someone, Aunt Charlie. Charlie giggles. Yes, it does. Izuku looks over when Charlie grabs her hand. Izuku, I know you're going through a hard time right now after what happened. Izuku winces as her feathers poof up in her anger. But remember, you got your family and friends to help you. Charlie smiles, just 1 year, okay? 1 year of being on your bestest behavior, and then you can be your little shit again. I'm not a little shit, Charlie, Izuku mutters, but giggles when Charlie pulls her into a hug. The two have gotten close over the years, since Izuku hangs out with Mina and Artemis a lot, or was being trained by Grandpa Alaster. Yeah, that was a crazy thing to learn that one of her ancestors summoned Alastor to make a deal to keep their child alive during the dawn of quirks. But he had taken a liking to her and had trained her in her magic, and even gave her the staff that she uses to focus her massive powers. He also taught her how to cook, which was fun and relaxing. The limo stops in front of Night Raven, and Charlie looks at the two with a smile. Good luck, girls, and just remember we're all cheering for you. Knock them dead. She then blinks. Wait, that's a figure of speech. Don't really knock them dead. Izuku laughs as she gets out of the limo, waving goodbye to Charlie as she and Mina walk through the gate of the school, their cloaks forming on their shoulders. So from what I'm told, we need to head to the headmaster's office, Mina explains with a little jump in her step. Izuku nods her head in agreement, but yelps when arms wrapped around her waist and a muzzle to her neck. She slumps in the hold of the black-scaled arms, looking up to stare at glowing orange eyes. Emmett, you bastard, she hoots as the hell dragon twirls her around, nuzzling her underneath her chin. You fucking scared me. Mina rolls her eyes, smiling and giving the two a wave before she heads to the office. Oh, how can I ever scare the radio princess of hell? He rumbles, putting her down. I don't think that's possible, my emerald, he smiles, and you can't blame me. I won't be able to see you for a full year. Izuku rolls her eyes, smiling at him. Greedy dragon, you'll still be able to see me. I'm not moving into the mortal world until I get into UA. The junior highs don't do dorms like hero schools do. And even when I do, I will still text and call you. Son of Mammon and Prince of Greed, it's my thing. He shrugs his shoulders but looks at her. Are you sure you're going to be okay? This is going to be your first time in the human world in 6 years. Izuku gives him a confusion look. I just don't like this. I understand being a hero is your dream, but I still think you're being forced into this. Izuku sighs at this, smiling, and Emmett puffs out some smoke. I'm just telling you what I think about this whole mess. I say screw them, that the humans don't deserve you after the shit they gave you. He places one claw hand on her face, bringing their heads close together. He stills when Izuku presses their lips together, their tails wrapping around each other, and Izuku lets out a chirr before pulling back. Listen, I want to do this. She rubs his shoulders, her heart pounding as she stares into the orange eyes of her boyfriend. The dragon being the one who helped her win, she shakes her head, not wanting to think of her and her silver blue eyes. I know you think I'm only doing this because my soul was made to do so, and maybe it is, but I want to help people. I want to be a hero and prove to every fucking human that ever doubted me that I can and will be a hero. Emmett blinked but sighs, nuzzling her. Fine, but no, I will always be by your side, my emerald. And hey, he smirks, you might meet some cute boys and girls up there. Izuku snorts, pushing against his snout as he laughs. What? You can't blame me. I want it all. Money, fame, hot boys and girls. Izuku chuckles, booping her greedy dragon with her beak. Well, hot stuff, you just gotta wait a full year before I even think of introducing you to any other potential partners. They're going to have to be in the hero courses, because only heroes know the truth about demons, and I don't feel like lying. Emmett chuckles before she pulls away. Now I gotta get going before I'm really late. I'll text you when school's done for the day, alright? Emmett huffs more smoke. All right, I'll miss you. Izuku smiles, giving him one more kiss before she runs off, almost crashing into the headmaster's door, but quickly opening. Crowley stares at her but smiles. Glad you can make it, Miss Gosha. Izuku smiles nervously as she stands beside Milo and Hitoshi. Besides her and Mina, Artemis, Milo, and Hitoshi had joined the demonic evaluation program. Now you five have signed up and have been chosen to take part of this program. For your final year of junior high, you will be going to a mortal school chosen by the commission. You will be having a watcher on you all the time. He narrows his eyes on Milo and Mina. to make sure you do not only cause massive amount of deaths to the living world, but also so the humans don't realize that hell is real. Izuku grabs the file that Crowley passed to her, opening it and frowning. Aldra, huh? She frowns. That's the junior high Bakugu wanted to go to. That's weird, Milo mutters. Mine says I'm going to Salty Banks Junior High. What? Mina growls, looking up. Mine says I'm going to Musitafu Junior High. Are you splitting us up? Yes, they all stared at Crowley when he admitted without hesitation. It's not like we can just ask that a school takes more than one demon. For the king's sake, they won't be able to handle it at all. He then claps his hands, making them jump as a soft wrapped package appears in their laps. Now here are your uniforms. Get dressed, and then we shall open a portal to your destination. This sucks, Mina growls. I know I heard of them separating us, but I had hope with how well we did in classes they would have kept us together. It's just 1 year, Artemis growls. Then we can all sign up for the entrance exams. Where are they sending you, Artie? Hitoshi? Artemis rolls his eyes. Some place called Coruscant. The thing we really need to worry about, Hitoshi yawns, rubbing his eyes, is the fact how people see us. One word of our powers, and with our looks they call us villains. Everyone was silent at that, knowing about Hitoshi's life on Earth before he had been sacrificed to his parents by his human ones. The fact that he grew up being called a villain while still human because of his quirk. Well, that's not going to happen, Izuku mutters, gripping the file tightly in her claws. They fuck with us. We're going to fuck with them so much that they regret it. The sun was shining, blue skies with very few clouds overhead. The people of Musatafu walked about, over slight puddles as Sakura petals fell onto the sidewalk. In an alley, a bright light pools from within the shadow. Izuku, now wearing a black school uniform with a red ribbon tied around her neck, took a step out. She takes a deep breath as the portal shuts behind her, opening her 4 green eyes. She stares a bit, her 4 claws gripping onto the straps of her bag tightly. Pull yourself together, Izuku. You can do this. Walking down the streets, she couldn't hold back the amazement about being in the living world again. Having not been here since she was 8, not even when her pops had work, not wanting to ruin her chances of being accepted into the evaluation program. Opening the file, she pulls out her phone and puts in the address of Aldera when the ground shakes as a roar rang through the air. A smile erupts on her face, heart pounding in her chest at the sight of a huge man who looks kinda like a shark was standing on top of a bridge, blocking trains as he swipes his hand. It smashes against a tower, causing sparks to fly as wires broke apart as it shatters, beginning to fall down upon the crowd below. Until a man with a muscular build, wearing a cyan cardigan that was open to reveal his torso, ran forward. He grunts a bit as he grabs it, holding the broken tower above his head and above the crowd so no one got hurt. Oh nice, way to go Death Arms. The punching hero. I wish I had a quirk that made me super strong. Izuku pushes herself through the crowd, heading towards the front, watching as water forms in a barrier in front of them. Everyone please stay back. This is far too dangerous. Whoa, the rescue specialist backdraft is here. He'll make sure we're safe. Izuku finally got to the front, watching with wide eyes before she began to rummage into her yellow bag. Wow, the rescue specialist backdraft is here. He'll make sure we're okay. This guy must be desperate to go full monster in the middle of the city. Do you know what happened? Some amateur stole someone's bag and then got himself cornered. Izuku snorts at this, pulling out a notebook, the outside design looking close to her papa's grimoire. Opening it, she began writing details of the hero's quirks. Her eyes flick up when a bunch of girls scream. Our Kamui Woods, we're your biggest fans. Another hero, appearing as if he was made of wood, flew over them. Kamui Woods, huh? Must have finally left Best Jean's agency now and started his own. He may be a rookie, but he did make a big name for himself already as a sidekick. She then blinked when the person beside her commented that she had to be a fangirl, and she couldn't help but laugh a bit in agreement before going back to watch the fight. Kamui Woods glares at the villain, crouches down. Assault, robbery, and illegal use of quirk during rush morning traffic. You are the incarnation of evil. Izuku couldn't help but snort at that watching as he dodged a blow of the villain who called him a toothpick. She grins more as Kamui began to use his pencil's move when suddenly a foot slammed into the villain's face. You gotta be kidding me, Izuku mutters as her eye twitches. She stares at Yu Taikiyama, one of the many daughters of pop star singer Verisika, grinning at the crowd. Izuku frowns a bit, rolling her eyes as MT Lady brings her butt out, her barbed spade tail wagging behind her. Hi everyone, I'm MT Lady, and you don't have to worry about this bum anymore. Ugh, Izuku mutters, writing down how well MT Lady could use her quirk in the city and the drawbacks. She grows a bit more annoyed as reporters came up, mumbling about money shot. Sighing, she closes her book, her tail wrapping around it before shoving it into her back, and she began to walk out of the crowd. She freezes, though. She looks around confused before she shrugs. Unknowingly to her, dark and thick slime was oozing out of a dark alleyway. Coal tars began to build up in that area as a growl was heard. That bitch, I'll make sure she will pay for messing with me. Excuse me, Izuku hisses, holding back the urge to lunge at the secretary who kept ignoring her. Can I speak to the principal so I can get my schedule? The lady only glanced up a bit and gave her a look. One moment, girl. The principal is quite busy, you know. Izuku takes a deep breath, keeping her feathers down as she glares. Fine then. But do tell him that he has to explain to my sponsor on why I was late for the first day. The secretary pauses at this and slowly looks up. She chokes, making a sputtering sound as she caught sight of Izuku. Why you're the girl the commission is sponsoring for a hero school. Izuku raises an eyebrow, smirking a bit. She kept her cool, but inside she was literally cackling. She watches as the woman apologies and quickly pushes herself out of her chair and heads to the principal's office. She rolled her eyes as the principal as he smiles at her, greed filling his eyes. Ah, Miss Gosha, it's such a pleasure to have you in our school, and quite an honor that the commission chose us to have you. Flattery gets you in the pockets of shrimp-dicked politicians, sir. Izuku interrupts him, eyes narrow. Not the daughter of the Gotisha family, she replies coolly, her eyes beginning to glow a slight blue. May I please have my schedule for this year? I would like to have it all set before I become late to class. The principal flinches and nods his head. Of course, madam. He holds out a piece of paper, his legs trembling. Izuku grabs it and nods her head. You have my thanks. And with that she spun around and left the office, shivering in disgust. Damn it, I'm going to have to take a shower after this, she whispers as she walked down the hall. Many students blink at her appearance with wide eyes, but she didn't bring her head down. Had it been her younger self, still human and beaten down by the society of mortals, she would be shy, conservative, and would shrink back in the shadows. But thanks to the love and care she got from her new family, Izuku was strutting down the hallways like a catwalk, completely controlling the hallway. Whoa, who is she? I think she's new. Why would she go to a crappy school like this? Think I could date her? God, she must be a slut. Look at how she is walking, like she owns the place. Izuku chuckles a bit at hearing that as she passed a group of girls who sneer at her. By the 7 rings she heard worse shit from Blaze and Dahlia. Making her way to the classroom, she swung her bag onto the back of the seat, sitting down in her chair. With one swift motion, she brought her leg over her knee. Despite wearing a school skirt, the show of only a bit of her thigh made the boys and girls look. Izuku smirks a bit at seeing this, giggling when they blushed and quickly turn away. But then she blinks when she felt an intense gaze burning to her head and looks behind her. Green eyes met with burning red eyes. In the past, those red eyes would have made Izuku filled with anxiety, fear, and a wistful longing, but in the present, the demoness only felt annoyance. Katsuki, it's only been a few years, and yet it feels like decades. So, what's up? Katsuki Bakugo blinks, the anger and intense look fading into confusion as he stares at the new kid. He hated how everyone's eyes were going to her, like she was someone important. She wasn't, not like how he was. He was going to be the next #1 hero. His quirk was the only one suited for Heroicas. He also had the perfect backstory, with him being the only one in Aldra to be accepted at UA, and though he didn't like to admit it, looking at this bird made him think that was going to be completely shatter. So no, he didn't like this girl, and he's going to teach her that he was better than her, that she was some damn extra that can go to some other hero school. Eh? Do I know you? Izuku stares before she hoots in laughter. Oh, this is gold, she purrs a bit, her smirk becoming a wide shit-eating grin that made some of the others fidgets. But I guess it can't be helped. I have changed since we saw each other. It does seem your arm has healed well, Kachin, she sneers out, her tail lashing behind her. That nickname, the uttering of it, fueled the blonde with fury. Deku. The old cruel nickname being spoke out loud made Izuku stop her laughter, and instead turned it into a vicious and demonic snarl. Do I look useless to you, you pathetic little sack of shit? Everyone quiets at this, staring at Izuku in shock. They all remember the little girl that had followed Bakugo around everywhere, even if he called her cruel names and used his quirk on her. The last time they saw her was when she broke his arm after he said something. None of them remember what it was, but afterwards she had been suspended, and then went missing, her mother ending up dead. But this Izuku was different. For one, she was no longer human, but looked like an anthropomorphic owl, tall and slender with a white, heart-shaped facial disc and small black beak. Her feathers were a midnight black with gradients to a bright emerald on her head, with 2 black horns curling out from the top. Her arms and hands, though, were bare of feathers covered in red scales. Midoriya, that's her. Damn, she grew hot. I thought she was quirkless. I wonder what happened. You looked like an overgrown feather duster, Katsuki snarks, his red eyes narrow at her. What the hell happened to you? Izuku shrugs, leaning in her chair as she stares at him. If you must know, I got adopted. Adopted? Who the fuck would want some pathetic waste of space like you? Katsuki snarls, but he stops when Izuku snorts. That's the best insult you got. It's so pathetic in grade school, Izuku remarks, grinning when explosions pop off Bakugo's palms. But at that moment the teacher walked in, forcing the class to settle down. Now that you're all third years, the teacher began, holding packets of paper. It's time to really think serious about your futures. I should be handing out the printouts on your desired choice, but you all want to be heroes, he smiles, throwing the paper into the air, and the other students cheer, showing off their quirks. Izuku sighs, shaking her head. She decided to be brutal, and maybe a bit petty, but as long as she doesn't kill someone her sponsor can't be mad, and she remembers how all the others treated her when she was young. Oh, everyone here, she nodded at Bakugo. Given his record of bullying, it would be a miracle if he actually made it past the acceptance threshold. I'm no bully, Bakugo snarls, standing up. I'm just better than all the others here. You can't compare me to these losers' weak-ass quirks. Izuku snorts a bit, while some yell about what he said, while some mutter slightly, rubbing their arms in remembrance of the pain that Bakugo put them through if they try to go against him. The teacher coughs. Ah, right, you're trying for UA. Bakugo smirks, staring with malice at Izuku, who just looked bored. That's right, I aced the mock exams, and I'm the only one who's got a chance. I'm gonna surpass even that All Might bastard as top hero. He stops when Izuku laughs again. You do know that it isn't just a strong quirk that makes All Might #1, do you? She crosses her arms, her eyes glowing a bit. He's the #1 because of how kind he is, how he can make people feel safe with just a smile. You, she looks him up and down and scoffs. You would scare the shit out of civilians, though, possibly wouldn't even go and save them. You were always worried more about beating people up. And what? Bakugo sneers. You think you can do better, Deku? You will die in the exams, you quirkless. He stops as a green glow surrounded all the desks, making them float all the way to the ceiling of the room. Everyone turns their gazes to Izuku, who smirks. My pops and dad knew someone whose quirk does a literal blood adoption. She gestures to herself, using the lie they forged to explain her sudden change. Only those in the hero business knew the truth about demons, knew the truth about hell. So something's had to be fib. Their blood awakened my quirk factor. Bakugo growls, snarling before the teachers calls them to attention. All right, class, settle down, settle down. Gosha, everyone's eyes turned to Izuku when the teacher called the name. Can you please bring the desks back down gently? Sure, with a wave of her hand, she brought the desks down. Everyone scooted their desks away from her, which made her smile a bit, but she didn't pay any attention to it, turning back towards the whiteboard and the teacher. Just 1 year of this, and then me and the others will be heading towards UA. She grips her pencil tightly in her hand, taking a deep breath. Thank you all for watching this video, and goodbye.